In this lesson, we're going to be talking about wireless or Wi-Fi or 802.11. I really want to look at this again, as we've done in previous circumstances. We've really looked at the lowest layer that we can possibly look at. So I actually want to do some packet captures where we are looking at the actual radio transmissions. There's a couple of things I actually have to do to make that possible. So I'm going to bring up my interfaces dialog, and we're going to take a look at options here. I actually need to pop this open, so I double click it, and you'll see there's a checkbox here that says capture packets in monitor mode. If I'm using promiscuous mode, I can actually see all of the data that's out on the network, whether it's destined for my machine or not. If it actually hits my network interface card in promiscuous mode, I will actually see it in the packet capture. With monitor mode, I'll actually see the lower layer of transmissions as well, where I can actually see what's going on with the 802.11 protocol and the communications that are going on between my network interface card and the access point. So we're seeing a very low level here. We're actually seeing something between layer 1 and layer 2 here, where we are seeing the communications that actually make the interface card and the access point actually communicate and function. So I'm going to do a start here. You'll see immediately there's an awful lot of communication that's going on. I'm going to do a stop on the capture here, just so we can get a sense of what's actually happening, because a lot of this is pretty repetitious. There are a handful of things that we are looking for here. We're really looking for beacon frames to begin with. A beacon frame is something that tells every wireless receiver in the area that there is an access point that's available. So we can see there's a beacon frame here, and I can open that up, and we can see the frame control header here. So the version is 0, and it says this is a management frame, because a beacon frame is one of the types of management frames that 802.11 uses that really underlie the communication that is done to get your data back and forth from your system to the access point. So there's some management that goes on in addition to all of that. And this is a management frame. So we have a series of flags. And you can see in this case, none of the flags are set, but we've got a similar thing to where we had IP, which is more fragments and more data. There's actually a protected flag and an order flag. None of these are actually set in this particular case. You'll see the SSID, which is the station set ID for the access point. And you can see it's actually owned by Apple. Now I'm going to close the frame control up, and we can actually take a look at the wireless management frame. So there's a set of parameters here. We've got a timestamp and a beacon interval. And now we've got capabilities information. So you can see that the transmitter is actually an access point in this case, and it will also support WEP, which is the wired equivalency protocol, and we'll get into that in a subsequent lesson. Short preamble is allowed, short slot time is allowed here, and there are a number of other flags that allow some other capabilities. And now we're going to look at the tagged parameters, and you'll see there's 216 bytes worth of tagged parameters. You'll see this is an SSID broadcast. You can see the different data rates that are supported here. We've got a current channel, and we've got some capabilities which tells us that this will support 802.11n, and we've also got some extended supported rates. There's a lot of information in here in this beacon frame that tells us that there is an access point that's available. In this case, actually, the SSID isn't being broadcast, and that's because the access point has been told not to provide the SSID. We should see whether there are other broadcast frames here, see if there's anything else that's out there. Let's take a look at this action frame here, and we're going to look at the tag parameters in this case. This is all about hopping patterns. The thing about wireless is you're actually doing a bit of frequency hopping during your transmission, and that helps keep the transmission safe to a degree because you have to know which frequency you're going to hop onto next. In this particular set of frames that I've got here, I don't actually have anything with an SSID in it, but when we look at these beacon frames, typically if you had an access point that was set to provide you the SSID, in other words, it was broadcasting it so everybody would know that it was there and available to connect to, you would see the SSID here. Now, again, in this case, I've actually got an access point here that's set to not broadcast the SSID. We do have the tag here inside the parameters, but the SSID parameter is actually empty in this case. So again, what we're looking at here is all of the frames that go back and forth between the access point and the system itself that actually make the 802.11 protocols function. There's an awful lot of activity that's going on, even though there may not be a lot of user data necessarily being communicated. A lot of it is just making sure that the client and the access point still have an open level of communication and that they're on the same channel and the same frequencies, and the communication is actually continuing as we'd expect it to.